Welcome to the Don't Go There podcast. I'm Dr. Brenda Gazelle, and I'm joined by my co-hosts Samantha Seaton, Amanda Krotzer, and Jennifer Sasaki. We are four psychotherapists going toward mental health issues that aren't often discussed. And our podcast may go to psychological places that are both scary and exciting. We hope to inspire authenticity and vulnerability. We want to go there, and we're so happy you've decided to go there with us. Hi there. We're asking the question today, why can't men keep it in their pants? And because of what's happening lately, we just felt we have to discuss this topic, the topic of sexism, sexual harassment, and sexual assault. But right before I begin, I just want to let you know that I have here with me today Samantha, Sam. Hi, Sam.
Hi. Felt like I should say hi that time. Hi, everybody.
I want everyone to hear your voice so they know that you are Sam. And then I have with me Jennifer, or she goes by Jen.
Hey.
Hey. And then Amanda isn't here with us today, but she'll be back next time. So I just wanted to let you know it's the three of us. But yes, we're asking the question. I'll repeat it. Why can't men keep it in their pants? And I think that it's a national conversation that's going on right now. The allegations, the investigations, and the formal apologies just won't stop. This past Saturday, on Saturday Night Live, Weekend Update, the host made a joke stating that this Thursday is Thanksgiving, and there's a lot to be thankful for unless you're a human woman. And I thought to myself, whoa.
That's big.
That's big. Mm-hmm. Men have been accused in entertainment, politics, sports. So I'm going to give a quick recap of what's been going on, just so we can all be reminded of the many allegations I'm talking about. First, we have Harvey Weinstein, who currently has more than 60 accusations of varying degrees of harassment, including at least 16 allegations where he exposed himself and 27 accusations of sexual assault. After the Harvey Weinstein allegations, then we had U.S. Senator Al Franken was accused of groping and kissing a radio anchor without her consent. And most of us have seen that photo of Franken grabbing the woman's breasts while she's sound asleep. Movie actor Tom Sizemore reportedly has been made to leave a film set in 2003 after an 11-year-old girl told her mother that he touched her genitals. Actor Richard Dreyfuss was accused of sexually harassing writer Jessica Teich, I think that's how you say it, and once exposed himself to her. George Takei, the Star Trek star, he was accused of groping another actor while he was passed out. And then we've got Louis C.K. He's been accused by two women that alleged that the comedian masturbated in front of them, while another said that she could hear him masturbating on the phone, and then two others claimed that he asked if he could masturbate in front of them. And then I just read that Sarah Silverman's sister said that on a road trip that they were going on while doing a comedy thing, he just masturbated in front of her over 20 times.
Oh my God.
She called it not criminal, but rude and gross, I think was the thing she said. Producer and director Gary Goddard allegedly molested actor Anthony Edwards when he was 12 and then raped one of his best friends. Celebrity chef John Besh was accused by 25 women of sexual harassment. The U.S. Senate candidate Roy Moore allegedly initiated kissing and sexual encounter at a 14-year-old girl when he was 32 years old. And then three other women came forward and said that he had initiated relationships with them while they were between the ages of 16 and 18 when he was in his 30s. The International Olympic Committee member Alex Galati, he was accused by two women of rape and by two others of inappropriate conduct. Actor Steven Seagal was accused by two women of rape. Minnesota State Senator Dan Schoen, he was accused of sexual harassment by multiple women. Ed Westwick, which is a Gossip Girl actor, was accused of rape. 6 women alleged that the producer and director Brett Ratner sexually harassed 6 women of assaulted them. Michael Oreskes, currently NPR's senior vice president, kissed women without their consent while he was the Washington bureau chief of New York Times. The Florida Democratic Party chairman, Stephen Biddle, accused of sexual inappropriate comments and behavior toward a number of women. Jeremy Piven, accused of 3 women of sexual misconduct. Dustin Hoffman, allegedly groped and made inappropriate comments to a 17-year-old girl while he was on a film set. And then we know the big Kevin Spacey one was accused of rape by Anthony Rapp when he was 14 years old, and he was also accused by at least 24 men of sexual misconduct or assault. Former President George H.W. Bush, accused of patting 7 women below the waist while posing for photos with them in recent years, well after he left office. And then our current president, Donald Trump, was accused by at least 16 women alleging sexual assault to harassment or inappropriate sexual behavior. And according to a lawsuit filed in June of 2016, Trump forced a 13-year-old girl to perform various sexual acts on him after he was informed she was a minor. This is only, isn't even all of them. Like, there's about, a ton more that they keep. I mean, there's lists. If you go to, CNN and Newsweek and Time, but I just wanted to, start listing them out because it's inundating. And I can't even, I picked up my phone this morning and they, another Democratic Party guy or this senator or this person resigned they're resigning because of sexual allegations. And it's just so big and huge. And we're dealing with so many issues when you listen to it. We're dealing with sex talk. We're dealing with sex without consent, masturbation, groping, rape, oral sex. And then we're dealing with minors, raping minors. So it's overwhelming.
Yeah.
And also, as I was thinking about doing this, I was thinking, well, maybe a man should be here telling us why men can't keep it in their pants. But for the most part, it seems that men don't know why, or they're not discussing why, and they're not telling us why they can't control themselves. And I hear a lot of confusion. I think hopefully we'll discuss some male depth psychological authors today, but if we don't hear anyone making meaning out of this, then maybe someone needs to, and we're someone. So I think we've decided we will. So the other piece I wanted to also talk about was the social media campaign that all of this has sparked. It's called #MeToo. And more women are increasingly coming forward with stories like the ones I just listed off, which were, intense. And then thousands of people marched in Los Angeles last Sunday in support of victims of sexual assault and harassment. And so I think, as psychotherapists, we've been asking, what does this mean? And we do have an interpretation that we'd like to get to. May not be at the beginning of this podcast. We might first start with just our thoughts about what's going on, but then we need to make some meaning of it. And what I think it means is that there is a psychological problem, and it's called the disowned or repressed feminine. This is a depth psychological term that is incredibly important for this conversation. So bear with us if this term sounds unusual or is new to you. It's not just the feminine, it's called the repressed or disowned anima. And the word is spelt ANIMA, and it's the feminine side of the person. And we all, both men and women, have a masculine and a feminine side. The anima is the part of the psyche that is the feminine side. It's directed inward. The anima is the feminine part of us that is in touch with soul, creativity, and vulnerability. And by understanding the concept of the anima, we can begin to illuminate the psychology of sexual assault, we believe. So regardless of gender, we want to talk about today this idea of an inner feminine or an inner anima and how it might make sense to what's going on. I have a lot more to say about it, but I don't think that it's the time. I think that first, maybe, it's time just to kind of throw it out there and see how you guys are feeling as I introduce this really heavy subject.
Yeah, I felt like it was so powerful to hear you read that list because I'm not a news watcher. I gave up watching the news a long time ago when I felt like it wasn't productive in my life. I felt like the important news I could find out in other ways. But I don't think you can escape this. I can't go on Facebook. I can't, write happy birthday on my friend's wall without encountering a lot of these stories and a lot of the accusations and the traumatizing stories. I mean, there's usually a disclaimer on everything when you click on it. So I felt it was really powerful to hear you read off that list. And what happened for me is I thought, oh my gosh, I remember when one politician getting a blowjob in the Oval Office was scandal. Mm-hmm. And it was that one isolated incident that had us all like, whoa, this is not okay. And now it's like, my brain just went to the Wizard of Oz. It's like the whole curtain has been pulled back. Mm-hmm. And you're like, well, shit.
Right.
I kind of figured it wasn't just one guy, but wow. It's really powerful and it's really intense and it hits on personal aspects of my own life. Mm-hmm. And it's, yeah, I think this is a really pivotal moment in human history. I really do.
Well, I hope it is what you kind of feel like is there a movement or is there going to be a shift or a change? And I think there could be. Because right now all we're doing is, like you said, pulling back the curtain and acknowledging it.
Yeah.
But we're not making meaning of it.
Right. It could get too scary. We might pull that curtain back and be like, oh, let's just lock them all up. And those are the bad guys. Mm-hmm. But, in my work as a couples therapist has really changed my interpretation of the bad guy. And it's usually so much more nuanced and complicated. It's easy to make one group or one thing the bad guy, but that doesn't tend to solve the problem. So it's powerful. Anyway, it was really powerful to hear you read that list. We've been preparing for this talk and I felt like, whoa. Oh,
right. Because there's and when I read that list, I'm like, I can't believe that I didn't include everything. Like there's more and more and more and more. At one point I was just like, okay, those are like a lot of the main ones, but also, just the different, I'm like, what's the commonality? Because some of it's just, okay, there was sex talks. And then I'm like, okay, everyone's masturbating. No. They're raping. No, they're pedophiles. No, they're molesters. No, it's like, what's the commonality? It's all sexual assault. It's all sexual misconduct. It's all sexual harassment. Okay. It's about power. Wait, no, it's something bigger here. And that's, what I think we want to get to. But I have to say first that I know there's a lot of feelings about the Me Too, and we've talked about that hashtag Me Too campaign, and I'd love to hear what you guys think about that.
Yeah. Do you want to go, Jen?
Well, I'm still back on the list, actually.
Oh, okay.
I'm sorry, before we go to the Me Too, because I felt the same way.
Did you?
I think coming into it and prepping before, I hadn't heard the list. I had heard a couple people, and I'm not a news watcher either. And it became something that I'm like just bothered by.
Yeah.
That I was like, I really don't want to listen to this. So I had zero idea of the
magnitude
of it. All I kept thinking is, wow, this is like an epidemic. That was huge. And like you said, different ages, so it definitely has changed my perspective some, just listening to the list of, and it's not just in the entertainment industry or just in politics or just, which is what I initially thought was, entertainment industry and, women trying to further their career or something like that. So that was like, very eye-opening listening to that list.
And I didn't even include some of the ones that are less well known or which I feel guilty about. I'll just say I didn't include Ron Jeremy on it. And then I keep thinking, well, I should have, because just because you're a porn star doesn't mean that your no doesn't mean no. And he assaulted people too, but I just glossed over that because there's so many men. I just started like listing them off and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I'm like, no, that's important. And I've been thinking about that. It has been bugging me. So I just had to say Ron Jeremy's on the list too. But there's even there's just so many. There's more, and they keep coming. They're more and more coming out. So it's clearly, like you said, the curtain's been drawn back, and it's powerful. And as it's being drawn back, everybody then has to say, okay, is this just in politics, and is this just in, the celebrity world, or is this something that we've all dealt with?
I think that's what's so striking about the list, to hear you say that, is because it's not just the list is long, it's that the list is so broad.
Yes.
Is that it crosses the lines of like, oh, it's politics, right? Like, we're humans, so we love, when there's anything frightening, we love to contain and isolate it so that we feel less threatened. So it's like, okay, it was just the entertainment industry. We're like, oh, Hollywood, we really we're going to neutralize it. Or it's like, oh, it's just politics. We knew there was something fishy in those politicians, right? But now you're like, oh, shit, it's everywhere. And then I really, really believe, I'm going to be bold here and believe something. I really believe that on every level, man or woman, people right now are like, oh my God, it's in Hollywood. Oh my God, it's in politics. Oh my God, it's Uncle Joe. Oh my God, it's my brother-in-law. Oh my God, it's like you can't contain the spread. Almost like when you in the Matrix, like once you wake up and you start to see, you can't unsee. And I think that's what's so striking about the list, to put it that way. Like, to hear you read that, I was like, this is a big issue. It's not just this isolated thing in this one industry that we can isolate, contain, neutralize, and solve, and then we can all go back to our perfect little Stepford lives. This is big, and we have to find a way to I feel like as a society, we have to find a way to keep our eyes open to something really scary so that we can transform something.
I think, though, what's been hard for me, I disagree a teeny bit, which is I haven't seen the spotlight hasn't been as much on the sexual abuse survivor, the child. I heard a couple on there, which was, not that I'm glad they're included on the list, but again, my scope was very limited because I didn't listen to it that much. And it felt like just the adult woman, the adult male. And I initially felt like, oh man, they're missing the kids who are very helpless too, and who aren't in the public eye.
When it comes to sexual abuse.
Yes, absolutely. And that's where I just felt like, oh man, again, this is horrible, and that they've been through this, and I want them to get their day. But I just think about all the kids. I can't help for my mind to go there who haven't had a voice or a platform or anything else, who have lived through this. And, there would be some attention focus there too.
Yeah. Yeah. And we pay attention to celebrities and people with power. And
do you think that's where the Me Too campaign comes from? Just to throw that out, I don't know if it connects or if we're not ready to go there, but go there. Pardon the pun. But do you think that's where the Me Too campaign comes from? Is that it is a way of I don't know, I've been to a concert a couple times, right? And there are these cool moments where a really rad song will come on, and there's this moment in the audience where one person, used to be lighters, but now it's a cell phone, right? One light goes up, and then another light goes up. And it becomes this unifying thing that happens in the audience where everyone's like, me too. I'm in it with you. And that's one of the coolest parts about concerts, is that collective experience with total strangers that you're like, isn't this song amazing? Right. And it's so, it's epic. It's
right.
Rad. It's rad. So I feel like maybe that's on some level was the impetus or the,
well, because I think motivation. We can all say, so I don't know what you guys feel about that. And I'd love to hear it, but I think that everyone can say Me Too if you're a woman in some way.
Oh yeah.
That we all can say, I have a story.
Yeah.
And I can, me and Sam already started sharing stories, and she was like, oh, I didn't think that would that was the weirdest stories that I shared, but I'll share just even my little bit of a story. It's not personal. Maybe it is, but this is about me being in my 20s, not when I'm younger. And I, went backpacking when I was 20 with my, good friend. And 4 times we were masturbated to by strangers. And the first time we were in she was 21, I was 20. We have our little backpacks on. We're in our train compartment and we sit down across from this lovely looking, debonair Italian gentleman and, thought, well, this is like a nice little safe place to be. Seemed good. We kind of fall asleep. I kind of fell asleep on her shoulder. I wake up to, he's got his dick out and he is masturbating right at me and, both of us, obviously. And I'm like, wake up. Tamara, wake up. We gotta go. I'm in shock. At first, I'm just shocked.
Shocking. Yeah.
And then I said, we gotta wake up. Let's go. And then, she's like, what? She looks over and she's like, ah, and I'm like, I know. We gotta go. We gotta get up. And he never stopped. As we're leaving, he finishes. And we're like, okay. Right. We want to like blame it on Italy. Oh, this is Italy, right? It's not Italy. We end up in Switzerland at the hostel. There's a guy right outside of our window, with the window open. We're taking off our shirt. We don't even notice him. There he is masturbating again. Then we were, oh gosh, what was the other one? I told you about it. Oh, we're at the Acropolis in Greece. Standing there, sticking my picture before we go up to the Acropolis, the bigger area by this statue, and a man right behind me, right behind her. She's taking the picture of me so she can't see him. He walks up and he just starts masturbating. And I'm like, you got to stop with the camera now and we need to start running away. Let's just run away. And she's like, what are you talking about? She's laughing at me like I'm nuts. And I'm like, I just don't even want you to look back. I just want you to run. And so, of course, she has to look back. He runs after us all the way up to the Acropolis. And we tell the police who are standing there that he's there and he's coming. They laugh at us and ignore us. And then we were like, okay, I guess we're just supposed to like calm down and shake it off. And we're here at this amazing monument. We want to take pictures and we're like, this is such a weird transition, like to go from like that just happened, but we want to like take, oh, how cool history is now. And we're like, I can remember feeling so discombobulated. I mean, this just happened again and again. And we're like, what is that?
Yeah.
Like, what is that? I mean, and that isn't, and I don't feel though, it wasn't like, it was not personal, right? This was like a stranger danger, right? Whatever. But like from another whole thing, but it's still so violent and so shocking.
Oh, yeah. So boundary crossing. I mean,
and I still don't understand. I'm like, what is that about? But so that's just like a small piece of like Me Too. And then you've got like people like literally like, I can speak to date rape. I can speak to other things that were literally, it was, horrific. I can say Me Too on all sorts of levels. And yet you just almost, I say that story in an animated way as if that's just how, things are for women. And I feel like most women kind of accept that. So I throw that out there as, a Me Too. And then I wonder like, but it doesn't make any difference. So, or does it matter? I don't even know. It's just like, yeah, we all know. Like, of course we know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's been something women have known for a really long time.
Forever.
I don't think we know what to do now that it's all out in the open, to be totally honest.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like, well, yeah. I remember not wanting to walk to the convenience store at 13 years of age from my house to the convenience store 2 blocks down because I knew what I was up against. It's fucking war. Mm-hmm. It's war when you hit the street. So I think there's something I'm really grateful for in this movement, just on a human level. Like if I take my therapist hat off completely, I'm so grateful for the validation that I'm hearing from some of the adult women that are coming forward. I'm so grateful that women are talking about how scary it is, because I think I always felt like there was something wrong with me that I thought that was scary. I'm a sexual abuse survivor from my childhood. And so I thought the reason that's bothering me is because of me. It's because there's something wrong with me, that like a normal girl would be flattered or to be able to have fun with that or whatever. So I feel so validated to hear my sisters come forward and talk about how frightening that is, because I feel like it gives me words to say, I want to love men. I don't want to be scared by men, but I have been scared by men and of men my whole life.
Mm.
And I think that that is maybe something shared in the feminine experience. I mean, we don't have the dominant sexual organ. So there has been an abuse of power. And so I feel very validated on some levels about that experience. I don't have same experiences as yours, Brenda, but I remember being afraid from a really early age. Mm-hmm. And I remember before all of this even started, there was something, I think it was on Facebook or something, one of the like social activist pages that I follow, said something about how like we have to stop the normalizing of catcalling women. And I never comment on stuff, but I remember commenting on it and saying like, thank you. Yes. I finally feel like I have a collective of others.
Right.
And so maybe this has been something that's been building for a while and that we're finally gaining power and joining hands to say like, there's something going on here and it's not all right. It's frightening. We're scaring each other. Why the hell do we need to scare each other? We're all stuck here on this ball going through space. When the fuck did scaring each other, pardon my language, but when did scaring each other become normal and okay?
Yeah, but here's the thing. I love that. I love it. I agree wholeheartedly and thoroughly with everything you're saying. And then I think it's not just scaring. When it comes to sexual assault and when it comes to molestation and when it comes to sexual abuse, I have a number of clients that I've worked with, and their flashbacks are never ending. And their wound is so profound. And this is something that most sexual abuse victims will say. It doesn't go away. And it affects you for your whole life. And it is, it's not just scary. It's soul murdering. Mm-hmm. And you have to spend so much time recovering your soul. And I know that seems abstract, but it's the only way I can say it because it has to be as dramatic as possible.
Totally. And I completely agree with you. But I think for me, it's been very powerful to break it. One of my favorite theorists calls it going granular.
Right.
To take a big abstract theory mm-hmm. and make it granular. Mm-hmm. I think it's been really powerful for me
yes.
to be able to say, oh, I have normalized waking up scared.
Yes.
Yes, it's robbed me of my soul and my life. Absolutely. But there's something for me paradoxically powerful in being able to say, when the hell did we normalize waking up scared as a woman?
Yeah.
And so I agree with you. And I think there's something powerful about the granular small word of
I agree
we've been living with
too.
internalized fear. And then we're called neurotics.
Yeah.
That was my crazy laugh. Like,
mm-hmm. No,
then we're pathologized.
Yeah.
For our anxiety. We're pathologized for our worry. You know, mm-hmm. like, oh, you don't want to talk to my mom. She's worried all the time. You want to know why? Have you heard mom's stories?
Right. Do you know why girls go to college and we leave it? When I went to Cal State Fullerton and I had my keys, you know, when we walked the parking lot in my hands, right?
Right. You had them out like spiking in between your knuckles. So if you punched, it had blades.
That's
I used to do that too.
Always. Because you knew and you found out then a couple days later someone was assaulted and you're like, crap. And then a couple days before they were assaulted on your campus and you're like, I got to keep my keys ready. I got to have pepper spray at home.
Right.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm thinking, gosh, man, I'm going a whole different direction.
Yeah, go.
So, because I'm realizing again how hard when we talked before about what we were going to talk about. And I thinking all I knew was that I had seen a couple stories. I felt annoyed by the stories. Mm-hmm. But as you began to talk and we began to do this, I realized as a sexual abuse survivor, there's still a part of me that lingers that sides with the man. And that's what it is. Mm-hmm. It's that part that's like, oh, come on, you know. And I don't know that I felt afraid of men. I think there's a part of me that couldn't deal with that powerlessness, that helplessness.
Identification with the aggressor. Yeah.
That felt like I had to feel like it was my fault somehow. So I had control. So I could change something. So I had power. And so that's what I have taken into this when I first viewed it, is this like almost like the poor man, like, come on, women, you know. And again, it was like one or two stories. And obviously And I'm not minimizing at all. This is, I mean, not at all. That's horrendous. Your story that you just told, Brenda, actually horrendous. I can't imagine going through that, you know, and how violating when you're just on vacation and stuff. But I'm just being honest with the part of me, I think, that still remains from being told, you know, this is what you do to me.
Thank you so much, though, for sharing that. And it's so insightful and so powerful, because you're not alone. That is exactly what we do to survive.
Yeah. You align with the power.
Yeah.
Totally. As you were saying that, I was like, oh, that's right. I have stories too. And I totally forgot about them. Like 7th grade, I was totally being sexually harassed. I remember I got so excited. I wore this white long sleeve shirt to school in 7th grade. And I was so excited about it because I was a girl with body image issues and I just loved this shirt. And I remember the guy next to me leaned over and he said, I really like your shirt. And I was like, oh, thank you. He said, you look better on my bedroom floor. And I was paralyzed. And he kept at it. He kept at it. And I went and I told my teacher and she said, boys will be boys. And then my 7th grade computer teacher started it. And then it was a teacher. And then I had to get my mom involved. And I remember the dilemma of being like, is it just me? Like, come on. Like, come on. Like, be cool.
Right. Be cool.
Be cool. Like, roll with it. Like, come on, you know? Like, anyway, I just really wanted to share those because I felt like, holy crap, I omitted those a minute ago. And when you were talking, I don't know what it is about you opening up that space, but I remembered.
And boys will be boys. I think that is like, there's a sense of like, we can't blame them. They're men. We don't understand. Come on. Like they've got different urges or something. Oh, I guess I don't understand as a woman.
Yeah.
I'm using my damsel in distress voice, but it's like some kind of like confused. And it's like, that's such crap. But we do that. And what happens is though, is the more and more we talk about this is what I'm noticing though. And this is what is so confusing is that we don't want to identify with the aggressor and we don't want to feel sorry for the man, who's abused his power. That's not the right thing to do. But what happens then is that we go, well, we've been harmed and it's not been acknowledged and the curtain's gone back. And like you said earlier, Sam, let's lock them all up and put them in jail, throw away the key. And then we realize, well, that's not the answer either. So wait a second. Are we all more human than not?
Yeah.
And if that's true, how do we make meaning of this? What's going on? And why can't men keep it in their pants? Why are they masturbating on a random train? Why are they sexually abusing, children, that they may be related to? Why are our teachers doing this? What's going on? And we need to make some sense of it. And there is some reason. There's a way in which we have denied the feminine. There's a way in which our society has said that we should be without feeling, without vulnerability, especially for a man. To have this macho way of being that is so annihilating of a part of himself that he murders or assaults a part of himself so early on in life that he ends up then wanting to reenact that with a woman or claim it with a woman. There's something weird going on, and I think we can talk more about that. I don't know if we're ready, but I just want to throw that out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think so too. It's interesting though, the conflict, because like I said, there's the part of me that lingers from childhood that is like, it's my fault as a girl, as a woman, as a, you know, and being told over and over, look what you do to me. I can't help myself. So there's that part. And then there's the part that says, oh, I don't want to give meaning to it or an excuse. Like that makes me so angry too, and it's hard that conflict inside, but I mean, obviously I think it's very important and valuable to make meaning of it. But
so say that again, though. You can't. But look what you do to me. So I can't stop myself.
Yeah.
What was the wording you used? I liked that. I mean, as I understood it, would you say it again?
Yeah. Look what you do to me. Like, I can't help myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what I was told by various abusers. Mm-hmm. So I took on this. This is my fault. Mm-hmm. This is something that I'm doing. I don't know what I'm doing, you know, as a 7-year-old, 8-year-old, 13-year-old, whatever, but I've had different abusers say this, so I must be doing something. Mm-hmm. And for me, that was something that I continued then thinking this is my role in life. And there are many men that are happy to, you know, play out that role and live that out. Yeah.
Yeah. What a horrific, way in which the, abuser handed over his power to you and said, look what you're doing to me.
Handed over his responsibility.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, you know, the key there is when people are abusive and when they are in power, when they're doing this stuff, they don't want to take responsibility. They don't want to acknowledge what they're doing, how they're wrong. Mm-hmm. So that is what is, you know, great about this movement and the list and it coming out, I think, is at least we're starting to pull the curtain back and saying, I mean, the amount of men that have resigned is profound. Wow. And they've had to leave their celebrity jobs as chefs, as movie stars, as their films are, you know, millions of dollars of films gone, their power, their political power, on. And at least we're starting with saying, I have to be culpable, that this is not someone else's responsibility, but this is my responsibility. Mm-hmm. So what's the next step after that?
Yeah, I think that's what's important. And I just heard too, as you said that about people resigning and this stuff happening, I think that's another piece that has made it difficult for me to listen to. It's going, this has been going on for years and years and years with, you know, child after child. I mean, it's so sad. The same thing, the amount of women that come into my office who have been through the same thing, and that it just has been so undercover, you know, for so long. And how now is it so important in a way? I don't know. I mean, obviously there has to be a starting point to it.
Yeah.
But I'm just like, oh my gosh, because one celebrity or someone that is deemed important comes out and says something, now it's a huge deal that we have to pay attention to. And that's what's hard for me. I'm like, what about all the kids that this has been happening? Do they not matter?
Right. How do we, as what we're asking, as women, as a society, tolerate, hold valid rage, and still consider why? Right? Can we do that? That's what we're asking. We're actually asking our listeners. We're asking you, can you hold? Because, I mean, the easiest thing to do is split.
Yeah.
And it's appropriate. When bad things happen and we say, bad, demonic, evil person, get rid of them. I don't know, stamp them out any way possible. Some people like to picture them murdered, kill them, whatever. We go to that same place, we split, get rid of them, annihilate them. They are bad, and we feel rage. And that's all we feel there's room for. And it's valid. When we've had our soul murdered, we want to murder the other. It's valid. And so then what happens is that we just keep annihilating one another, though.
Yeah.
So
murdered people murder other people.
Yeah.
And where does it stop? If we then murder in retaliation, I don't think that's a solution. As you're all talking, I'm thinking like, I feel like the only option is that we have to extend an invitation.
Right. But
to something better.
Wow, man, that takes such badass woman balls.
Take some really firm ovaries to make that happen. I think it's possible though, because I think everything we have been doing has been enabling.
Yes.
I work in the addiction community, right?
Yeah.
And so when something finally gets to the point where you find the needles and you see the addiction and you see how bad it is, and oftentimes it is people's worst nightmare. But then it is also the moment of revelation.
Such a provocative idea you're saying right now, that enabling sexual assault, though. So let's just
I know.
say more than if you're going to go down that rabbit hole, because it's pretty profound.
Well, I would say on some level, I think, and I don't want to be victim shaming because I'm been a victim of this myself, but I'm thinking like macro level humankind on some level. To even say boys will be boys is such a enabling behavior, but to such an insult. It does not extend an invitation. I'm a mother of boys. It does not extend an invitation to you are a boy and you are capable of so much more. In some way, it says boys will be boys. Just leave them in the gutter where they belong. We have had a power that we have perhaps disavowed or not wanted to own, I think, as women. And I think it is time for, so I work with couples, right? And so I think that the couple, the man and woman at home often represents like the social man and woman. There's like this micro level situation that often reflects the macro level. And I've never seen a situation be effective for change in a family that has come from you need to change. But I have seen effective change from couples join hands and say, we need to change. We need to look at our part in this. And I will no longer accept this behavior, even if I've accepted before, because it is an invitation to more, because we are worth more.
Yes. Okay. So let me just go with that for a second. And the only time they do it is when they're ready.
Yes.
And usually that's when the rage has died down a bit. So we have to then be honest and ask the question, and maybe our listeners will tell us, we're too soon. Is this podcast too soon?
What do you mean?
Are we asking people to look at bigger meaning and to acknowledge, which I'm going to talk more about, but maybe like the inner feminine and the inner masculine in everybody, and woman's responsibility of even as a mother saying boys will be boys, or cultural responsibility. I don't think it's too soon, but will people feel like it's too soon because we haven't given enough time for them to feel their rage?
I feel like that was my initial response when you talked about the understanding. And I'm like, what the fuck? I don't want to understand where these guys are coming from. That was my initial response.
And I think a lot of people feel that way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like, why do I have to understand? I get what you're saying, Sam, and the importance of understanding it, for us together to do something about it. But I'm just like, I think I feel mad still. Yeah.
And say more, because I think that's an important voice that needs to be heard.
Yeah. Well, I mean, again, it's just like going, why should we're the victim here. Right. We've lived with this for so long. I mean, there's so much more that needs to come out. Again, I go back to the child, and the little, both boys and girls that are being sexually abused. But I'm like, where is their voice yet really in this whole thing? They've been victims for so long. Right. This has been going on from their own family members, from close, trusted, relatives and friends. So until that voice is joined with what the little tip of the iceberg that we've heard, which is already huge, but I'm just not ready to move to a place of understanding of why they're doing this.
And let me just jump on the soapbox for a second. I'm just going to throw in here the sexual abuse of pageant kids.
Oh gosh, yeah.
That's part of our social thing. All of it. It's all there. Like how we treat girls, all of it. I hear it. There's so much. So I just have to honor that if we move to a different place on this psychologically, we understand we're asking ourselves and the listener, we're asking so much. Yeah. We're really asking you to, really kind of go cerebral for a moment and just like hold, I think some righteous rage. and some valid rage. And we're not saying that we need to get rid of that or that needs to go away, that it's all right and that marches and stances and all of this are right, but that then there's also something else just to begin to consider. Yeah?
Yeah. I mean, again, as much as I still side on this part of being angry and not wanting to understand, I do have to ask the question with all these people coming out in the marches. Well, okay, so how does that help? How does that help the sexual abuse and sexual assault survivor?
Say more, please.
Well, I mean, we do have to have some sort of understanding to be able to move forward in some direction. If not, we are just victims ultimately all the time. And I don't want to stay in that place.
Beautiful, yeah.
Either.
Yeah.
So I think that's an important piece to it.
Okay. So are we ready to go back to our original interpretation I kind of threw at the beginning of the podcast?
No, I have like 27 things to say.
Okay. Well, go for it. I'm ready for 27. It's like a list.
It's a list. Maybe not 27.
All right.
But as you're talking, Jen, I keep like, yes, we have to wait for them, but we also have to start somewhere. And I think that sometimes social change has to happen before that kid in Kentucky sees that thing on that TV that one time that gave him the courage to say that one thing, that it almost has to start somewhere. And I feel like I want to be really careful of not tearing the whole thing down and saying it's not good enough unless it involves everybody. Because with something like this, like we got to start somewhere. We got to start, like, it's a big overwhelming task. So let's start with one box. Start with one thing. And then this one thing. And yes, it has, I think it feels important to me to like, we have to start somewhere. And it seems like social change always starts somewhere. So I totally understand what you're saying, because I'm a victim of childhood abuse too. And I feel like, thank God the people with power finally said something.
I definitely agree.
Because if they can say something, then it allows all the people with less power to finally find a voice that feels more valid.
Yeah.
I feels more like it gains some power.
Yeah.
And then I do think that it is important to push us towards understanding and hold at the same time that I'm the girl in the last forgiveness podcast that was like, what if you can't ever forgive? So I totally understand and I feel valid in that. But I also feel like I can't move towards healing unless we humanize these men, because these are men I have loved. And if they are bad and they are shit and they go in jail, then what does that mean about me because I loved them?
Well, they might go to jail.
Right.
And their actions may have been shit.
Right. Their actions can be held accountable. But I think it is important for my sanity, just as a human, which is why I love being a therapist, to humanize it and try to understand it.
Amen.
Because if I put them on the villain list, I fall right in that hole real quick. And so I loved these men. The men that sexually abused me when I was a child were men in my family. And understanding how their pain overflowed and caused me pain allows me grace to forgive myself and to forgive them, even if I never step in the same room with them.
Yes.
Forgiveness doesn't mean if you're not moving towards health and recovery, I'm going to expose myself to you ever fucking again. But it does mean I have to humanize the problem so I can humanize my love for the person caught up in the problem. Does that make sense? So I feel like that is where, for me, I'm like, I don't know if it's too soon. I don't know if it's ever too soon to move towards humanizing our most destructive tendencies.
I think it's just hard. I agree with you totally. I'm just thinking about the person who hasn't gotten there yet, who hasn't even had the freedom to feel anger at their abuser because they've taken responsibility the whole time.
You got to remember how much work Sam's done.
Right. I mean,
exactly. That's
disclaimer, therapy for 10 years before this was a social movement.
So that is what I want to say to the person out there listening who hasn't done their work, who's not ready to move forward to humanizing this person.
That's okay.
Destroyed
your
them.
freaking time.
Yeah. That's okay.
May it take the rest of your life.
Yes.
Take your time.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. But it would be amazing if those of us that are ready could bust out some resources for when they are ready. That's how I feel. Those are like, I've been in that trench for 10 years and I've worked through it and I'm continuing to work through it. But if I can use what I've been through to bust out some resources for some sisters when they come out to plug into, to help themselves continue the other side of healing, which is forgiving themselves for loving a human, a wounded, damaged human, then I think it's important. Sorry, it's not 27 things, it's just like 2 or 3 really loud things.
Well, and I just have one thing to say to what you said about it starting somewhere.
Yeah.
And I totally agree with that. And I'm so thankful for the people who have come forward, who do have a platform.
Yes.
I just hold this other side that I feel angry still at how long it's been going on. And for the people who haven't had a platform, it just seems like, I just don't want them to get lost. That's
don't
my
want it
only
to
thing.
Stop there.
Yes.
It needs to keep going.
Absolutely.
This is an awesome start, but let's not draw the curtain back. Let's keep going.
Yeah.
What a great dialogue so far, you guys. I just want to say, first, I think what we've done really well is just acknowledge that we all are women who have been harmed in some way, all by this issue, by sexual assault or misconduct, and that we fully agree and fully encourage healing.
Yeah.
And we believe that this movement is beginning maybe to allow that for other people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And we applaud that. Yeah. And if you need to be angry or you need to just say, you know what, to hell with those motherfuckers, go ahead for as long as you need. We're not telling you not to do that. We understand that that's the process. But that what we also want to bring in is that there might be a way in which to understand why men can't keep it in their pants.
Yeah.
That there might be a way to understand why this keeps occurring. Why men just start masturbating on a public train, that you would never, think they would do so. Why what seems to be good intentioned family members had children or nieces or nephews, and then they cross those boundaries. Why that occurs. And so I think this is a good time to maybe transition into talking a little bit about that. I know that this is a big topic to now transition into, but are we willing to go there now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what I'm going to do is just go back to that original idea that I had discussed, because this might be a little bit one of our longer podcasts, because it's twofold. First, we're just really discussing the problem. But now we are saying it's really important that we give some meaning to it and maybe some solutions, because we care so much. But this is so just beginning to discuss the problem and the solutions, not solving anything. So again, what I want to talk about is that our interpretation is all about the disowned or the repressed feminine. And when I talk about the repressed, disowned feminine, I'm talking about this idea of an anima, A-N-I-M-A, and it's the feminine side of the person, that we all, both men and women, have a masculine and a feminine side. And the anima is the part of the psyche that is feminine. The anima is the feminine part of us that is in touch with soul. That we all have an inner feminine regardless of gender, and quite often, like a fairy tale, our inner feminine is sleeping like Sleeping Beauty, and we need our inner prince to awaken her and care for her. We need to learn to become more vulnerable, more self-reflective, and in touch with our inner self. So in depth psychology, it's understood that you can't expect to repress your feminine side and come out unharmed. If you reject your feminine side, if you reject vulnerability and feelings of soul, which both a man and a woman can often do, expect mayhem, problems. So I think our discussion, what we're turning to now, what we're going to talk about now, is that a man who sexually assaults, a man who is doing masturbation or even harassment or groping or whatever the things that we talked about on that list, that that has something to do with an imbalance in his psyche that he has learned early on from things like boys will be boys to not have feelings, to be powerful, to push down abuse, to not acknowledge needs, helplessness, weakness of any sort. That what happens if you do that enough, that if you cut off a whole part of your psyche, an imbalance occurs and then something happens and you act out. Mm-hmm. And that this doesn't just happen in men, this happens in women too. So women also can deny their feminine side. And we could talk all about that. That's a whole other beautiful podcast of the ways in which we do that.
Yeah.
Our anima doesn't get to be honored in society because if we're successful, we have to act more masculine than feminine inside. Mm-hmm. But I think that the most important thing here for us to begin to discuss or for us to begin to think about is that if I were going to, as a therapist, treat a sexual assault, a person who does sexual assault, a person who has molested someone, a person who is coming to me and has just resigned from their job because they say, I was convicted of sexual misconduct and mm-hmm. I masturbated 20 times in front of one person and then 17 women, said, yes, I did. Yes, I did that with them, blah, blah, blah. And the whole thing we just discussed, they come to me and say that there is a treatment that I would have in mind.
Yeah.
And that would be that they begin to look inside and say, what has been cut off inside of you that you need to project it onto a woman and act it out with her? Mm-hmm. That's real psychological. So I can begin to explain that even a little bit more, but as I throw it out there, maybe either of you want to jump in or I'll just keep going if not.
I'm good with you still going, actually, unless you have something, Sam.
Always. Don't I always have something? I always have something.
Jump in, Sam.
Jump in.
All right.
Jump on in. Oh, man. Yeah. Where to begin? I felt like, as you said that, I've got somebody who comes into my office, I immediately was like, well, of course, we have a plan.
Yes.
Right? We have a plan. Therapists, psychologists, we've had a plan. For a long, long time, we've had a plan. And so, putting that lens on it, to me, I mean, it may be, one of my sophisticated defense mechanisms. I love putting the lens and getting all scientific because it then starts to feel less scary.
Sure.
But yeah, I love that idea because clearly when you break it down like that and you've got somebody who's just, this is what's happened in my life, they lose the power of being a monster and they start to be like, oh, like,
what's wrong with me?
We've got a human with some profound wounding and some like a wreckage of acting out.
Yes.
Which, I mean, I didn't know I brought up the addiction community earlier, but it kind of feels the same.
Sure.
I was listening to Jon Stewart on a brief interview talking about, he's friends with Louis C.K. and he was talking about, what it was like for him to hear that his friend, Louis C.K. was convicted of all of this. And he was very honest and he looked very troubled. And, he talked about how shocking it was. He talked about how, there are people who have, they've lost in the comedy business from addiction and from alcohol abuse and substance abuse. And so acting out of this nature is not uncommon. And it was really interesting how he drew that parallel. And I think it was very helpful for me to be like, oh, something's really wrong here. It doesn't make it okay. Not okay to stick needles in your arm. Not okay to drink and neglect your family. Not okay to do this. Doesn't make the behavior okay. But we got to put another framework on this.
And that's, just what Sarah Silverman did a monologue on the same thing about, because Louis C.K. was one of her really good friends for 25 years.
Yeah.
And and she said, oh, man. What did she say? It was really witty. She said something like, I'm going to go ahead and address the elephant masturbating in the room. Mm-hmm. But then you're kind of like, at first I was like put off. I'm like, this isn't funny.
Yeah.
But then she just really sincerely said, can I love someone? Is it okay to love someone?
Yes.
That does really bad things.
Yeah.
And just don't mull that over later. Right now, I just want to say it was bad.
Yeah. And maybe that's what's happening. Maybe we're all just grieving. And anger is a stage of grief.
Yeah.
And then there's negotiation. And then there's back to denial, like, never mind, let's close the curtain. Is it we're just finally collectively grieving that, like, somehow we all got this fucked up. Somehow our men got this fucked up. That's sad.
Well, they've been fucked up for a long time. And so,
Yeah.
But nonetheless, yeah.
They have, true. But we've maybe been like, it's okay, he's successful. And now we're like, his success means nothing. This is like, we're just grieving. I don't know.
No. I like that. And I think, yes, let's stay with that. Let's stay with, the man who comes in who says, because we can't help the man who doesn't come into our office or, who doesn't say, I'm really messed up and I need help. I've been sexually assaulting or harming someone else, right? We have nothing to say to them, but we have things to say to them. They're not going to listen to us. We're speaking to the people who come into our office. So let's stay with that guy who comes in and what is it that we would help them understand about what they've been doing? Why are they taking their dick out, man? How do you psychologically make meaning of that? As we look at projection, shadow, and the repressed anima.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know. That's still a hard one for me. Again, I'm still stuck here with I hear what you're saying about the, disowning a part of ourselves. And I've been reading so much Brene Brown. So I think just how much the disconnection, and that how.
And she's speaking about this.
Yeah,
she's not saying repressed feminine, and she's not using the word anima.
Right.
Yeah.
But what she's talking about, and the reason why Brene Brown is a famous author now is because she's saying we have to honor the feminine side, the vulnerability, the anima. If we don't, we're in trouble. If we don't, it's all mayhem. It's chaos.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, there's disconnection from ourselves and obviously then disconnection from others and trying to figure out then how we get our needs met. And that's all I can think about while you're, talking about that.
So, and I just keep thinking about the fact that a person tries to control another so that he will not have to experience his own helplessness.
Yeah.
A person tries to control another so they don't have to experience, or he or she doesn't have to experience his or her own helplessness.
Well, and I think I sort of spoke to that in the beginning. Again, being a sexual abuse survivor and trying to grab control of it in some way.
Yeah.
So I don't have to experience my own helplessness.
Beautifully said, beautifully brought around. Yeah. So if we know that's true, and then we understand that there is within everybody a masculine and a feminine side, and that there's this part of ourselves that does want to be vulnerable. And vulnerability has to do with helplessness, which no one likes to honor. Powerlessness. We almost think that's a bad word. Vulnerability is more acceptable than powerlessness. But really, we only have power over ourselves. We really are very helpless in this world. Right? That if we can get in touch with that part of ourselves that is just here and vulnerable and wants connection and love and wants to create and has something beautiful and soulful to say, that is so different than power and overlording over someone and control and all of the things that go with a macho ideal, that those two we want to integrate. That's what I would say to this man who would come in and he would look at me completely bewildered and have no idea what I was talking about. And it would take a long time. And it takes us a long time to understand that there's meaning in just being. There's meaning in caring for things that aren't deliverable, and in self-reflection and in knowing ourselves.
Yeah.
Can anyone speak to the value of that?
I laugh because I feel like that's what we do all day long. Right.
Right.
No. Welcome to a room full of therapists.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's why I just go back to like, yeah, that's why it has to be an invitation. Because these things have been here all along. But I think perhaps maybe it goes along with, you know, it used to be that the only people who went to see therapists and went to see psychologists were people that were, you know, severely mentally ill, or there's the mental health realm. And I think we're finally maybe touching on a fact that like, it's kind of like going to the dentist. You should probably check that shit out. Like we've been neglecting about half of our brain.
Yes.
Like you're talking about the masculine and the feminine. I love Dan Siegel. So Dan Siegel writes a lot about the brain. He does a wonderful job of incorporating therapy, incorporating all new neuroscience, incorporating Eastern philosophy, and doing some great research with how talk therapy actually helps the brain change. And I love the validity that he gives to the work that people have been doing for centuries, but haven't known how to validate and say, hey, this stuff really works.
Yes.
And
he's
so
a superstar.
He's awesome. And he's so great. And he's so like well-spoken, and he just makes sense. He's just really powerful. So I love his work. And he talks a lot. One of my favorite books of his is The Whole Brain Child. And he talks a lot about the right brain and the left brain, and the emotional brain and the logical brain, and how the two parts of the brain need each other and they need integration. So you're talking about the feminine. And then I'm thinking, oh, that's the whole right brain. And we all have a right hemisphere of our brain.
Beautiful.
And I hope that this can be a wake-up call for the neglect that we have as beings on planets, on a rock floating through space, that we are just at the tip of understanding how we operate, and that we have neglected this whole right side of our brain, our feminine.
Right.
Our feeling self. And in neglecting that, like you so beautifully said, you can't neglect that without consequence. And we are seeing some of the consequence. And women, I think, have had and will continue to have perhaps their own movement of like, wait a minute, we've been taught to neglect our left brain, our logical brain. But wait a minute, we're powerful thinkers. Wait a minute, we've got all of this brilliant logic to bring to the world. And men have a right hemisphere too. And so I love breaking what we do as therapists down into tangible, factual, scientific terms. I feel like it gives it the power that it deserves. And I think that it's really important to acknowledge that feminine side of the brain is the right hemisphere of the brain. So I don't remember why I got on this tangent. It's late now. So help me, Brenda. Where did I start? Bring me back.
Well, what a stunning thing you're doing is you're talking about neurobiology. And what I love about it is that here's the coolest thing about what you just said, is that, yes, we've got the feminine and we've got the masculine. And that's depth psychological terms. We can say, yes, we can also use it in brain terms, which is right and left brain.
Right.
What happens when we have trauma?
Yeah.
Is so interesting. Is that the corpus callosum in our brain actually has shrinkage, and there is
corpus callosum is the thing that joins the two hemispheres together.
Thank you. Yes,
you're welcome, folks.
Yes.
Thank you, Dan Siegel. I learned that from you.
Yeah. It joins the right brain and left brain together, and when it has shrinkage, you don't get connectivity to both sides.
No. And what Dan always says is when the right brain gets activated in small children and in adults, because we are only giant children, is that turns the brain to chaos.
Yes.
And when the brain is in chaos, it does whatever it can to regulate itself. It acts out. So what we need to do is join in the chaos and help those that are ready to make sense out of their chaos, to take ownership of their chaos, and to help them think through the erratic behavior that is causing the acting out. Because when you can think it through,
darling, good job.
You can bridge the two, and then you have a whole-brained man.
That's it.
And then you have a whole-brained woman. And then you have whole-brained humans.
Yes.
But I think we're really touching on how all of us have been very unparented. So many of us have been very unparented. And there's no insult to parents because I am one. But I think that to me is the only way I can do this without shame, is say it's an invitation. It's an invitation to, we need to evolve. We need to learn how to use our whole brains differently.
Beautiful.
And I think that means getting far more educated about our emotional life, about our whole right hemisphere, and quit the bullshit lie that you cannot feel. There is a feeling attached to almost every action, almost every thought. I would say every thought there's a feeling attached to. And I think we've lived this weird collective lie of like, oh, I'm just not an emotional person.
Right.
Yeah, you are. It's just so chaotic. You're probably acting it out.
You don't know how to think through your emotions. You just act them out. And you act them out by taking your dick out instead of telling someone that you're attracted to them and you would really like to be closer.
Right.
Or
you
that
feel
you
powerful,
have, or you feel
powerless.
powerless.
Yes.
And helpless.
We're terrified of them.
Amen.
Yes.
Preaching it, sister.
Yes.
You're doing it. I love it.
Yeah.
Okay. So real quickly, a couple more things and then we'll kind of finish up.
Yes. And you will get your honorary PhD after listening to this podcast.
You're right. We've gone technical today.
We did.
We are. But I think it's important to bring all this education and say, I know it does sound at first a little confusing, but then when you start to grasp it, you go, oh, there is terms for the emotional world. There's thinking through the emotional world.
Yeah.
There's making sense of my emotional chaos. Mm-hmm. And no one has emotional intelligence. Not no one. So few have emotional intelligence. We've been trained again and again to have cognitive intelligence.
Yeah. Well, that's all left brain.
That's all left brain. And we've been left in the dark of how to deal with these powerful emotions. And then, so many of us have gone through trauma. And we're not then taught how to deal with the emotion that comes up when the trauma occurs.
Yeah.
The thing I wanted to bring up that I think is thrown around so much by therapists, and I throw it around on this podcast, is the word projection. So I just wanted to define it and then make sense of it when it comes to what we're talking about, because I think it may illuminate a process and it might be kind of interesting and helpful. So basic projection. What is it? It's when I have all kinds of thoughts and feelings I don't want to own, so I say someone else has them. Okay? Real basic, but I don't think we always get this, right? Mm-hmm. So I know. So my colleagues are looking at me like, yeah, Brenda. And I'm like, well, but we're going to talk to listeners that may not know what projection is.
Totally.
Okay. So, Sam, I tell her, I come in and I say, gosh, you gave a look I saw earlier and it looks like you're pretty angry. And she goes, oh no, I'm doing good. And I'm like, well, you look kind of angry. Right there, what I'm doing is I actually walked in. I didn't, but if I was angry, if I walk in feeling really angry and I don't want to own it, I put it off on Sam. Or I walk in and I say, Jen, oh man, you look so sad. Are you okay? She's like, I'm doing all right. And I'm like, are you sure? Your eyes look kind of down. Are you sad? And she's like, no, feeling all right. And it's me trying to give it away. Mm-hmm. Now here's this really, and again, PhD, you're going to get after this. But here's this really great extra piece of that. Right? Which is projective identification, which is that we do this all the time and it's going to fit with this topic. I'm going to bring it back around. And if it's too much, you can just laugh at me. But nonetheless, okay. So then imagine this. I say to Sam, are you sure you're not angry? I come in. Are you sure you're not angry, Sam? And she goes, no, I'm not angry. Sam, you sure you're not angry?
No, I'm good. I'm okay.
I don't know. You look kind of angry. And she finally says, you know what? Well, if you keep bugging me about it, I'm starting to get a little irritated. And then I'm like, that's the thing. You're always irritated, aren't you? And all of a sudden she goes, well, I'm feeling pretty irritated now. And now I've given away my anger and she's identified with it. And I don't have to hold my emotion anymore. Mm-hmm. I threw it at her. She caught it. This is happening all the time, mm-hmm. Right? It's a more advanced psychological idea, but I want to throw it out there. Same thing with Jen. Give one more example. Mm-hmm. So I said, Jen, aren't you sad? You're not sad? She goes, no, I'm feeling okay. And then I say, well, you look really upset. Well,
yeah, maybe I am starting to feel
so sad. That was easy. She caught it so quickly. I was going to tell her a sad story and then give it away, but she just caught it, right? The idea is that someone else catches and identifies with it. How does that fit with sexual assault? Let's think about it. So I go in and, gosh, let's go back to
What Jen said.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
So give me that statement again, the way that it was said.
Look at what you make me do.
Break it down. Or I'll break it down.
I don't mind.
And I grab hold of it and take it on as my responsibility.
Yeah, I must be doing something.
So how is that projected? What did the man do when he walked in? When he says to you, or he's standing next to you and he says, look what you made me do. How is that a projection?
He projects his shame and his, I get what you were saying earlier about power, but I have a hard time with that word. Power. The power.
That he doesn't want to own.
Doesn't want to own power, but because what Spider-Man said.
Or the responsibility.
Great power comes great responsibility.
This isn't my responsibility. This isn't my power. This isn't my shame. You have it all. I have nothing. Power. Look what you're doing to me.
Yeah. I can't help myself.
I can't help myself.
Yeah.
So you notice this. I think this is so important because people don't realize it's very savvy. It's projection.
Yeah. And I think this has happened to women since the beginning of time.
Right. So now Jen grabs it and she goes, okay.
Let me cover myself. Sorry, I just went there. Let me cover myself.
How bad I am that something's wrong with me. I must be,
let me cut off my sexuality because
I must be doing this.
Powerful.
Or let me use this.
Use it. Yeah.
Let me use this.
That was more my case. Yeah.
Right. Let me use this. I must be so powerful. I make people do things they don't even want to do. I make men do things they could never own or have. Look at me. And you're owning all of this disowned power by a man. You see, but it's not yours. So our job then is to give it back to that person if you're the woman. And the man's job in this situation, because it couldn't be man or woman, is to own it. I know that's pretty psycho-savvy, but I think it's important at the end to give, because these big ideas, I think, can change people and help them have a better understanding of what's going on.
Yeah.
I'm thinking of the shame piece of it too.
Yeah.
Because I think the shame piece speaks so much to what you're talking about, the disowning of ourselves.
Yeah, so much shame. You know, what is it? Bradshaw that did that beautiful little book on shame. It was a bestseller. And he said, healing through shame that binds us. And he said something like, the job is just to pull back that shame and chew on it. Like, that's the way to own our shadow. We've got to chew on our own shame, and we don't want to do that.
And Brene Brown calls it owning it.
Yeah.
You have to own your story in order to be able to write the ending.
So if I didn't pick that up, I mean, obviously I was a child and that happens, but instead pushing that back, and that person had to hold that shame. Yeah. And had to really chew on it and own it and work through that.
Yeah.
For themselves, and learn how to feel and be vulnerable in that and own that whole piece of themselves.
And become a more balanced human being.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it's important, especially for me, being the one that's kind of advocating this invitation to a new way of looking at things and to looking at this problem.
We all advocate the invitation.
Right.
We're all advocating the invitation.
Right. Absolutely. But I also think it's important, especially seeing I drew that parallel between recovery and the sexual assaulters, that some people aren't ready to own it.
Right.
And that you don't have to stay in the room. You can just give it back and leave. That the people who are not ready to take it back aren't safe. And I think that I made Brenda shake her head. So
no, I got it, but I think that I want more clarity because I think it was quick.
Yeah. Okay. So my thought is that there are stages of recovery, right? So you've got people coming in, drug and alcohol problems or sexual addiction problems or gambling addiction problems or eating disorder problems. You've got people coming in, and you've got those people that are like, I don't want to do this anymore. Something's up. Like, they're ready, right? They're ready to own it. So you can give it back and they can go, oh, crap, I did it, right? Those people it's workable with. There are some people who you will try to give it back to, who you will say, like, when someone says like, oh, look what you made me do, you could laugh in their face, right? And they will keep going because they do not want to hold it. So what I have learned is that it is powerful to just let it lay there on the floor while I walk away.
Yes.
I don't have to make that. I have no power about that person's readiness to pick it up. I have no power over that person's readiness to own their story. Sometimes all I have to do is give it back and walk away.
I love that. And that is that's sometimes people's life's work.
Yes.
Is to not, when the other person won't pick up the shame, just to let it sit there.
They can
not pick it up.
Squirm on the floor till it dies, but I'm not going to take it home and digest it.
I know we're closing up, but I'm going to have to just really quick do a tangent.
I love it. I totally feel like I have one too.
Okay, good. Okay, I can't help myself because this is so just good.
Yeah.
But guys kept saying, look what you made me do. Or you kept saying that.
Yeah.
And this song from Britney Spears, my reverie is, look what you made me do. You know that song? Look,
was that Taylor Swift, the new one?
I mean, not Britney Spears. Oh, that funny. I said Britney Spears. Taylor Swift. Yeah. Taylor Swift, look what you made me do. And her whole thing of it is, look at, I have to become a new Taylor now. And then, I mean, this is funny that I know this and I'm a, 40 something woman, but that she says something like, the old Taylor's dead, right? Mm-hmm. She's not here anymore. And she hangs up the phone or something like that. And she goes, look what you made me do. And she's all badass now. That's the idea. Mm-hmm. And it's really huge. Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting because what is she doing? Sorry, Taylor, but she is disowning her power.
Yeah.
She's projecting it on to everybody else. Mm-hmm. And she's not claiming that she gets to choose and she only has control over herself.
Yeah. And that's why there's temporary satisfaction in doing the same thing back that was done to us, but it is not a long-term solution.
Amen. That's good.
It's temporarily really satisfying, but we have to own that it's not a long-term solution. It has to be an invitation for us both to look at it differently. All of our sides.
Okay. So if we've become, if we've gotten, if we've made sense, if we haven't made sense, no, honestly, I want to throw this out because I don't usually feel like we go so heady. Sometimes we are a little more just visceral and we want to do that because we want to be vulnerable and we want to invite vulnerability. But I think, we wanted to go more cerebral with this very, emotional and provocative topic because we wanted to make meaning of it. But we would love to hear feedback.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
If you would email us, if you would add something to Facebook or put something on to our podcast webpage or whatever you would do, is so invited because I know we feel like we have swam in deep waters by doing this topic. You had a tangent and I don't want to let it go. So Jen,
it's even just a closing. It's even just a closing thing that I can add to it.
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking about how we're talking about owning this vulnerability side and this feminine side. But it is also important that we create an environment that people can do that and just, spaces that are safe, because that is the other piece of it. It's not the easiest to own this side of ourselves and to be vulnerable and to share and to, so I just don't want that to be missed out of this podcast too. The importance of being that for someone that they can have that space to do that. So
lovely.
My side tangent.
No, that's perfect as closing. I agree completely. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure I give my email to you, Brenda@GazellePsychotherapy.com. I'm going to spell it, Brenda @GESELL psychotherapy.com. And if anyone else wants to give their email, I think this is a great time.
Yeah, mine's the same. Samantha @Gazelle Psychotherapy. So SAMANTHA @GazellePsychotherapy.com.
I'll just let you guys take it over.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's good.
All right. So, as we finish, I just want to say, to both of you, thank you. I'm proud of us. And then I want to say to the listener, this was a difficult one for us.
Yeah.
And we felt a lot of fear coming into it and then a lot of bravery and, we understood that It's a painful, scary, powerful, provocative subject that needs care. And we hope we did it with enough care.
Yeah. I think that's a part of honoring the feminine, is saying hard conversations need to start somewhere. So we're willing to try to start to have some hard conversations and to maybe get it wrong and get it right and get it wrong and get it right again until something gets beautifully created out of the kitchen work.
Yeah. Lovely. We'll end there. Thank you.
Sounds good.
Thank you for choosing to listen to the Don't Go There podcast. If you enjoyed our podcast, please review us on iTunes. To learn more about any of us, go to www.don'tgotherepodcast.com or www.gazellepsychotherapy.com. Thanks again.